Good evening, pallets and mercs. Today we're going to go over Battletech. Why do we love LRMs by Mechanical Frog? I have to say my relationship with LRMs has been tumultuous. I believe I said that right. Anyways, yeah, it took me a long time to appreciate LRMs. For a multitude of reasons I will probably get into in the video, so I shan't spoil it here. But with that, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and let's get right into the film. Battletech, why do we love LRMs?
One could argue that humanity has changed a lot from the days of being trapped on Terra. But
I don't know why the rain is in like 0.5 speed.
as with so
Hello
many
there,
other arguments
Catapult. I
concerning
see you
human
over
nature
here.
and ingenuity, many things have not changed since those early days of Sword and
Yeah,
Sarissa.
that's kind of weird.
We still use
It's
lasers,
distracting.
cannons, and missiles to project our power and seek to put distance between us and those who receive our violence. There is no better practical, everyday battlefield example of this than the long-range missile. Hafruz Farouk, Scientific Ethicist, Free Worlds League, 3145. Though guided
honestly,
missile
he's not
technology
wrong.
has been around since the 20th century, the long-range missile system used on battlemechs, which benefited from being a uniform and standardized design, wasn't introduced until the year 2295. It has of course been refined and improved upon since then, but the fundamentals are essentially the same. The fact that LRMs can be fired indirectly at their targets at great distances has made them an important weapon for battlemechs, as so many of the other weapons are direct line of sight only. LRMs,
Which is a very nice feature, by the way. Like, I do like the fact that you can lock on at longer ranges, but something that's kind of odd, and again, this is coming from a Mechwarrior perspective, not necessarily Battletech. The reason why I gave LRMs a little bit of flack for a long time is when you go to lock on with an LRM system, sometimes it will glitch in and out as to whether or not you can lock on. It's not even the targeting system itself. Like, inner sphere targeting computers are not that great to begin with, right? From the lore, we all kind of know that. Clanners are somehow worse, which doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, it's the Clanners. They lost to the inner sphere. They had superior firepower and superior training. How did you lose? Well, there's a multitude of reasons, but we'll get there eventually. The LRMs tend to try to lock on, and then for whatever reason, it will drop the target, even if you have sensor range on it. Like, basically, the only way to ensure that you will always have a lock is if you tag it, which is kind of weird because it will show, like, the target will be revealed on the map even if you are like way outside of sensor range. So like, I'm talking, it can be up to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers away for some matches, right? Like, sometimes you'll have a duel, arena battle, and it'll just show them because basically they're trying to level out the field, but then they can't really show you that mech because you're not in sensor range, so it just blips out. And keep in mind, most of the targeting computers I have are like, maximum range is going to be about 1,000 meters. So basically like a kilometer, and then that's really about it. You might get a little farther than that, but not by much. And then even if it is within sensor range, it'll sometimes blip anyways. And it's not even like, oh, it's the mech hiding behind terrain. It's just, it will lose the sensor lock. And especially when I'm trying to like fire with LRMs. So by the time that I've dealt with that and I'm ready to fire, they're already within like brawling range anyways. Whereas here in Battletech, I don't necessarily need line of sight to be able to lock on and be like, cool, I'm going to pump him with LRMs, which this mech for some reason has a snub nose PPC and a regular PPC. And we're talking about LRMs. I see how it is. I'm just teasing, by the way. But yeah, no. Battletech, it's going to work a lot better. And as for the clan LRMs or hot loaded systems, you can basically ignore the minimum range nonsense and treat them as if they were SRMs, which has kind of made me reconsider LRMs in the later years after like the clan wars, but that's a different subject
were designed
altogether.
to fire armor-piercing explosive missiles, but can be adapted to fire many other types of ammunition depending upon the needs of the user, but we'll get into those later. The missiles themselves are guided and are constructed from what is described as a metal explosive mixture that renders almost all of the device, including the casing, fins, etc., as part of the explosive result. This aided in the miniaturization process and allowed mechs to hold many more missiles without sacrificing each missile's destructive power. Usually fired in launcher groupings of 5, an LRM launcher can fire 5, 10, 15.
That is insane. I love how it says scout the base. Yeah, you can definitely tell this is a House Steiner stealth mission, because if there's nobody alive to report what happened, you have succeeded in stealth.
Or 20 largely self-guided missiles towards the target. The system's age and widespread standardized use has made it easy to install, maintain, and even upgrade with equipment like the Artemis fire control system.
I need to play it.
Loading up Mechwarrior Online for the first time in years was surreal, and very quickly I was reminded of how little I enjoy this game. I quickly built a Mad Dog Prime with a couple of LRM-20s and medium pulse lasers in order to grab some video and experience all that the LRM boating had to offer. In short, it was incredibly unsatisfying to see mech armor flash from gray to light yellow to a slightly darker light yellow before some other mech killed the target or I was killed. If it's not...
Yes, because 90% of Mechwarrior Online is just brawling. It is basically a giant death ball in the middle of the maps. There is no tactic, there is no strategy. It is basically how much brawling can you do with a mech, and nothing could be more nothing could be more aptly applied to this statement than I think it was the javelin build. So there was this javelin that you could shove a bunch of rocket 20s onto, get to the backside of an assault mech, fire once, and you would kill the mech. But that's it. You have no more ammo. So you can basically just capture a point or sit out the rest of the match. And it's just like, who thought this was a good idea? And I'm not saying this like, oh, well, Mechwarrior Online's bad. It's not. Like, again, I wish that there was more duels in Mechwarrior Online. Like, not even like, oh, you have to do Solaris stuff. No. 4v4s, 2v2s. So basically, Lance, Paris, and just regular duels. If you had that, Mechwarrior Online would be one of the biggest games, like on any console. Like, you could, this would be such a resounding success, because when it comes to Mechwarrior, the time to kill is so high, as he's finding out here, right? So just implement the golden standard, the golden ratio here for mechs. And that's going to be that's going to be 1 or 2 mechs taking on each other. And you can come back from if you have 2 mechs bearing down on you, it is possible to overcome that sort of battle. It is. It's difficult, but it can be done. And if you had that sort of flexibility for this game, it'd be a lot more popular. If you just added those 3 modes in a smaller map size, I would play it more often. I really would. I would play it. I definitely will. It's just
Immediately apparent I wasn't a big fan of playing an LRM boat back in the day. All in all, I managed to get a couple of kills across 3 matches and called it a win. There's definitely been some power creep in the game, as with all various new weapon systems they've added in the past few years. Once a mech closed on me, I tended to die pretty quickly. C'est la vie. Standard inner sphere LRM systems are designed with distance in mind, and the missile tubes tend to be angled up. This is why they have a minimum range of 6 hexes in the tabletop game. The clan LRM launchers do not have this minimum range, which I have been told on many occasions by fans of inner sphere factions is incredibly unfair. I can only shrug and say, take it up with Catalyst. It is possible.
Or, you know, just salvage it off a clan mech, slap it onto the inner sphere mech, which tends to have more space, and then look at the clans and go, skill issue. Fucking skill issue. You decided to put one of your 15 mechs on my planet and didn't think that I was going to try and salvage your LRMs? Bet. We'll do that. Because at the end of the day, right, it's like, yes, if you don't have that minimum range, it is kind of overpowered, but you do have hot loaded systems as well. But I think that was more after the clan invasion, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. And again, no, that was vanilla. That was vanilla for that was added during the Shadow Karinsky DLC. So I guess to some extent it could be
possible to hot load LRMs, and that rids the inner sphere launcher of that pesky minimum range, but at the cost of accuracy and a little bit of danger. There's a +1 to hit modifier, and while normally you would roll a 2d6 to determine the number of missiles that hit, while hot loading, you would actually roll a 3d6 and take the 2 lowest numbers for your cluster table result.
Oh, you're rolling
the risky part, dangerous part of hot loading your LRMs is that if the launcher takes a hit during combat, the missiles will explode in the launcher, doing their full damage. Adding insult to injury, the player must then roll a 2d6 on a 1 through 5. The ammo in the loader also explodes, setting off an ammunition storage explosion. That'll ruin most, if not all of your day. Hot loading.
So basically, your level of danger just went from bad to even worse. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to hot load my systems. I know I'm a little crazy, but like that just, I don't know if I'd want to take that chance of just having a launcher just explode, ammo going up, and basically my core right after that, because I don't really run cases all that much, so
LRMs is not for
that'd be a bad day.
Now, let's talk munitions. Because as we know, missile launcher is useless without plenty of ammo to fire out of it. We're going to save the Artemis FCS discussion for another video.
That is rough, just punching off an arm off commando. That's rough, buddy.
It was a specialty guidance equipment option. Deserves its own video down the road. Plus, we want to keep this video down under an hour. Now, before we get into all specific types of LRM rounds, keep in mind that unless expressly explained in the rules, you can't mix and match types of round. Well, there are some exceptions to this, and we'll get to them in a bit. Our first type of specialty munition is the flare LRM. They're used to add some illumination to an otherwise dark battlefield. They're fired at a map location rather than a target unit, and they will light up the sky, eliminating the normal +2 to hit modifier for night combat within the hex hit, and 3 hexes in any direction surrounding it. The flares impact combat the next turn and will depend on the size of the LRM launcher used. An LRM-20 flare will last 4 turns, 15 will last 3 turns, LRM-10 lasts 2 turns, and finally just 1 turn for the LRM-5. This is one of those things you might consider if you know you're going into a night battle. However, having a ton of LRM flare ammunition is a considerable investment. In a more horrifying...
So why not just use night vision? Am I being spoiled by Mechwarrior? Because we mostly just use night vision. Like, you also have headlights as well. I guess if you're doing a stealth op, like, that would be more appropriate, but I'm not 100%
The LRM
sure.
fragmentation missiles are designed to rain down shards of metal on unarmored structures and personnel. If used against infantry, the amount of damage is doubled. This could be incredibly powerful if you know you're going to be facing infantry units in the battle. Unfortunately, the fragmentation effect does no damage to armored units, including tanks and other vehicles. For reference, an infantry unit of 20 soldiers would be completely wiped out by an LRM-10 if all of the missiles struck. Even worse, if that unit is in an open terrain hex, the damage is already doubled, so a full flight of LRM-5 fragmentation missiles would be enough to kill the entire infantry unit. Bad times had by all in that hex. For the firebugs in the crowd,
I mean, that is definitely rough, but it doesn't cost all that much to put a bit of infantry on the battlefield. And it's rough. No, it really is. But lives are cheap, mechs are not. And that's kind of the motto we've always had to keep with Battletech.
incendiary LRMs offer the prospect of starting fires across your battlefield. Normally a roll for a deliberate fire is 9+, but with an incendiary fire round it's only 5+. The uniquely interesting aspect of the incendiary rounds is you don't have to carry them in full-ton allotments. They can actually be blended in with standard LRM ammunition. This is reflected in all rolls of the missile table when you are rolling for your hits. So when the player rolls, as if the launcher is one size smaller than it is. So if you're using that LRM-20, you would roll on the LRM-15 column. Additionally, due to their nature, incendiary rounds are more likely to cook off in a mech if it's in an inferno environmental condition, so something to keep in mind. Heat-seeking LRMs seek out the infrared heat signature of a target at which they are fired. The more heat the target is giving off, the stronger that missile lock. The Maximum Tech sourcebook has the table that will guide you to sort out how to modify your 2-hit roll. At 0 heat, which includes infantry and light vehicles, there's a +2 to hit modifier, so it's actually harder to hit if it's got no heat. However, as the heat of the target increases, your 2-hit modifier is going to drop into the negatives. For example, at 6 to 10 heat, there's a -1 to hit modifier, and at 11-15, it's -2, and for 16+ heat, it's a -3 on your 2-hit roll. Not too shabby for LRMs. This is another one of those specialty munitions that could be incredibly useful if you know your opponent is going to run hot, or if you're going to be fighting in a warm environment that's going to push those heat sinks to their limits. Semi-guided LRMs take...
So essentially, my mech is going to be lighting up like a Christmas tree. I am basically going to be the forbidden heat signature. Because if you know anything about my mechs, they tend to glow very, very hot. Like, regardless of whether I have heat sinks trapped at the thing or not, it's always going to be an inferno in there. Because alpha striking is underperformance.
Take advantage of tag, the target acquisition gear, and with a successful lock, ignore the modifier for target movement. That can be incredibly handy for hitting those fast-moving mechs and vehicles, though you still have to get that tag lock to begin with. The usual 2-hit modifiers for indirect fire and tag spotter movement also don't apply, not too shabby. Smoke missiles, shockingly enough, create clouds of smoke that can obscure the line of sight on the battlefield. Similar to other specialty munitions, they're fired at a hex rather than a unit. The number of hexes this smoke impacts depends upon the size of the launcher. Specialty rules for smoke apply, but it's outside the scope of this video. They're in the Rules of War sourcebook if you need them. Swarm LRMs are interesting because the lore behind them is fun, while the rules implementation is horrifyingly slow. Basically, they're LRMs with an advanced targeting system that will seek out a secondary target if they miss the primary. So let's say 12 of your flight of LRM-20 missiles hit their primary target. That leaves 8 more missiles that can target an adjacent unit. This could be a friendly unit or an unfriendly unit.
Great. So if you miss with 8 of your missiles, they could just slam right into the side of your fellow mech jock. That is not good.
The attacker then rolls to see if those missiles hit the new target. There are details for these rules, but it is a slog, and there are 9 bullet points worth of stuff to dig through, additional reading required just to figure out how they work in specific situations. This might be one of those things that Catalyst looks at simplifying or just getting rid of entirely in future versions of these sorts.
I would just simplify it a little bit, because I think the idea of having it hit a secondary target is completely within scope. You could just be like, yeah, so if you miss with like 8 of your missiles, you roll to see if it hits another enemy. So say like I don't know, maybe like a D20 or something. This is more like D&D, but the same sort of concept. Roll a D20 to see if you hit, and then if you do, great. You roll like a D6 or something to see which target within your immediate radius gets hit. And then you roll to see, like you roll like basically see where that would hit based upon the amount of missiles that are left. That's it.
Books. The Swarm LRMs are a neat idea with a real headache-inducing rule set. Finally, my favorite of the LRM specialty munitions is the Thunder long-range missile. Originally designed and used by SLEF forces, Thunder LRMs were rediscovered in 3052, as so many other technologies were. Their battlefield role is to distribute mines across an area in hope of creating a nasty surprise for units that cross them. Similar to artillery and other specialty LRM rounds, Thunder missiles can only target hexes and not units. The strength of the mines depends upon the size of the LRM launcher, and from the point of deployment, any unit entering or passing through that mined hex must roll to see if they're set off using the standard minefield rules. I remember using Thunder LRMs exactly once back in the day, and as I recall, they were quite useful for channeling my opponent into a direction you wanted them to go. Unless, of course, they were willing to risk treading on a mine. And as we all know, the best way to avoid dying after stepping on a landmine is to throw yourself several hundred feet in the air and spread out over a wide area. Thanks, Blackadder. Now, it wouldn't be a Why We Love video without noting some of the mechs that are standout examples of the technology highlighted. For the LRMs, I don't think anyone would deny that the Catapult stands as kind of the quintessential LRM boat among the classic inner sphere designs. With 2 LRM-15s, the C1 variant can put up a lot of missiles downfield while still remaining potent in the mid-range with those 4 medium lasers. For the clans, the Mad Dog springs to mind quickly as it's in its primary configuration. 2 LRM-20s can't be ignored for very long, and there's little point in closing the distance since it doesn't have that minimum range, and it has those large and medium pulse lasers that
if he's not going to say it, I would say the Mad Cat as well. 2 LRM-20s go
heavy punch.
burr.
Other notable mechs include the Archer, Longbow, several variants of the Stalker, and the awesome 8R with its 3 LRM-15s. Good times had by all. Now, do you have a favorite LRM tale to tell? Is there a specialized munition that you have used to great effect on the tabletop? Let me know in the comments.
I mean, I don't know if this could technically be considered, but I love throwing the Aeroforce system onto my Bushwhacker and then proceeding to absolutely destroy the Solaris Arena. And it works surprisingly well. Again, I don't think it's necessarily like LRM specifically, but I do find that I enjoy that quite a bit. Yeah, I think I need to focus a little bit more on the LRM side of things because they are useful. It's just sometimes dealing with the targeting computer can be a bit of a nightmare, but I do enjoy them nonetheless.
Below, I love reading all of your stories of glory and misfortune. If you want to watch more, I'd recommend the Why Do We Love Pulse Lasers video linked above.
We did
Thank you
see
for
that
watching
one.
and your continued support for the channel. Now take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.
I have to say, it's always a good time seeing a Mechanical Frog video. I absolutely love when he does videos on weapon systems and generally just anything got to do with Battletech. But if you want to have a look at the original video and support the original creator, the link will be in the description and in the cards above. But as always, this has been Annika, signing out.